I want to share something with you, something that completely changed the way I see life. Picture this: you're standing at the top of a hill, the sun setting on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the field in front of you. You feel the gentle breeze brushing against your face, and in that moment, everything seems possible. I remember when I was a child, I used to tell my father about the dreams I had. I would say that one day I would live in a house on top of a hill, surrounded by trees and lights that shined like stars. I would say I'd have $1 million and live the life of my dreams. And for a long time, I held on to those visions, thinking I knew exactly what was best for me. But you know what I discovered? I found out that the dreams I had for myself didn't even come close to what life had in store for me. I used to think I needed to plan every step, control every detail, but at some point, I realized there was something bigger at work. That's when I started to let go, not give up, but surrender to the idea that maybe there was a greater plan, something I couldn't fully see yet. It felt like I stopped rowing against the current and started letting the river guide me. And suddenly, things began to happen. Things I could have never imagined on my own. Think of it like being in a boat in the middle of the ocean. You're holding on to the oars tightly, trying to pick the right direction, but the waves keep pushing you somewhere else. Then, one day, you let go of the oars and allow the tide to carry you. And, surprisingly, you realize you were being guided exactly where you needed to be. That's what happened to me. I stopped fighting against the flow and started trusting it. I began to trust that there was something greater, something that was orchestrating every step I took, even when I couldn't see the full path ahead. And that's how everything changed. Opportunities started to appear, doors began to open, and suddenly I was living something far greater than anything I could have ever dreamed of on my own. I realized that when you let go of fear and the need for control, you unlock something powerful, an energy that works in your favor, creating connections, placing you in the right place at the right time, and bringing answers you didn't even know you needed. That's what I experienced, and that's what I want for you. So I ask you this: are you ready to let go of the oars? Are you ready to stop fighting against the current and allow life to take you in the direction it was designed for you? Because when you do, something magical happens. The pieces start to fall into place, the doors begin to open, and suddenly, you realize you're exactly where you're meant to be. Not because you planned every detail, but because you trusted the process. Now look around you. Think about everything that has happened to bring you to this moment. Every challenge, every victory, every moment of doubt, and every decision you've made. All of it was preparing you for something greater. But to get there, you need to allow yourself to let go, trust, and move forward. Are you ready for that? Because if you are, I promise you, the view from the top will be more incredible than you ever imagined. Have you ever found yourself in a moment when everything inside you was screaming the right answer, yet you still hesitated? You closed your eyes for a second and tried to silence that inner voice? Now, imagine that this voice isn't just a random thought, but the echo of your truth. A truth that has always been within you, like a compass pointing to the right path. And that's exactly what I want to talk about. Because every decision I've made in my life, from the smallest ones to the most transformative, came from stopping, listening, and trusting that inner flow that represents the truth within me. And the best part, that same truth exists within you. It's always been there. And that's why today, I want you to imagine what your life would look like if every choice was guided by that voice, that intuition, that certainty already living inside you. Now think about this. You've been making choices your whole life, ever since you were a child. Maybe you chose to get closer to one friend instead of another, take a different path home, or even say yes to something that felt scary. And without even realizing it, each of those decisions was shaped by that inner truth. So what would happen if, starting today, you decided to listen to that voice more clearly? Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that ignoring what your heart already knows only creates more doubt, while following that truth builds confidence, purpose, and results. That's what I want for you. It's the dream and the prayer I have for you today, that you find the courage to trust what you already know to be true.
Take a moment to imagine what it would be like to live with that certainty. Picture waking up every day knowing that your choices aren't being guided by fear or external pressure, but by something much greater. Because having the ability to make the right choice based on your truth is exactly what brought me here. Standing before you, sharing this message. And not just here, but to many stages around the world, impacting thousands of lives. I truly believe that this same power is available to you right now. And the question is, are you willing to listen? Because everything you need is already within you. Everyone has what I like to call an internal compass. It's that feeling deep in your chest that tells you when something is right or wrong. Maybe you've felt it before, a flutter in your stomach when something feels amazing, or a tightness when something doesn't align with who you are. That compass never fails. But what often happens? We ignore it. We silence it. We let the noise of the world around us speak louder. And I know what that feels like. I've been there. I've tried following paths that seemed easier or faster, but weren't aligned with my truth. And every single time, I had to go back and start over. Now imagine what it would be like to stop fighting against that voice and instead let it guide every step you take. What would it be like to stop resisting and start flowing? Imagine making decisions with clarity, moving forward with confidence, and finally breaking free from that cycle of doubt and regret. Because that's what happens when you connect with your truth. Opportunities appear, doors open, and answers come. And I'm not talking about magic or coincidences. I'm talking about living in alignment with who you truly are. So I challenge you to ask yourself right now, what is your truth trying to say? What is that decision you know you need to make but have been avoiding? What are you waiting for to listen to what you already know is right? Because in the end, that voice never gets it wrong. It always points in the direction of your growth, your purpose, and your fulfillment. And the only thing you need to do is trust enough to follow it. If you're ready for that, start now. Leave a comment. I'm ready to hear my truth, and let's turn this intention into action together. Because your truth is waiting for you, and the time to listen to it is now. Imagine for a moment that you're standing in front of a closed door. Behind it could be the opportunity that changes everything in your life, but opening that door means taking a risk. What if it doesn't work out? What if it goes wrong? That's the weight of owning your own path, betting on yourself, and taking full control of what lies ahead. It's scary, but here's the truth. There's no growth without risk, and no victory without courage. When I decided to bet on myself, it was like jumping off a cliff not knowing if the parachute would open. But deep down, that inner voice, that intuition we all have, told me, go, trust, take the risk. And I went. Because in the end, the biggest risk of all is standing still and letting life pass by without ever trying. Every decision I made came from this place, this space of listening to my truth, of taking a step into the unknown with faith and determination. And that's what I want you to see today. Your life isn't defined by what happens to you, but by what you choose to do with what happens. I chose to take action. I bet everything on my own potential and committed to living intentionally. I especially remember 1989. I had been doing my program for 3 years, but something inside me still felt restless. That's when I found a book that changed my perspective. The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukov. It described how every action in life follows an intention. This deeply moved me. It was like I finally understood that it wasn't just about working hard or being lucky. It was about planting intentional seeds and trusting the process of growth. Now imagine this. You're holding a seed. Small, seemingly insignificant, but inside it is the potential to become something enormous. A tree that bears fruit, a garden that blooms. But for that to happen, you need to plant it. You need to water it. You need to trust in time and the process, even when you don't see anything happening on the surface. This is the foundation of everything I've built. Every choice, every move, came from a space of faith in the invisible and in my own ability to grow. And I know that you have this seed inside of you too. Everyone does. But what differentiates those who bloom from those who remain stagnant is the willingness to take action. I want you to stop and ask yourself right now, what's holding you back? Fear of failure? Doubt about your own worth? Or is it just the comfort of the known, even when the known no longer satisfies you? Whatever it is, I want you to know that trusting yourself isn't easy, but it's necessary. Because the greatest regret you can have isn't failing. It's never having tried. Are you willing to bet on yourself? To plant that seed even without immediate guarantees? Because the truth is, success is built on calculated risks and intentional actions. So, as you think about this, remember, the path to living an intentional life doesn't start with big leaps, but with small steps full of purpose. And the first step is to decide. Decide that you're ready to put fear aside and follow the flow of that inner voice that has always known the way. This is your chance to stop waiting for others' approval and start creating the future you deserve. What will you choose today? Every decision I made came from this place. This space of listening to my truth, of taking a step into the unknown with faith and determination. And that's what I want you to see today. Your life isn't defined by what happens to you, but by what you choose to do with what happens. I chose to take action. I bet everything on my own potential and committed to living intentionally. I especially remember 1989. I had been with my program for 3 years, but something inside me still felt restless. That's when I found a book that changed my perspective, The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukov. It described how every action in life follows an intention. This deeply moved me. It was as if I finally understood that it wasn't just about working hard or being lucky, but about planting intentional seeds and trusting the process of growth. Now imagine this. You're holding a seed. Small, seemingly insignificant, but inside it is the potential to become something enormous. A tree that bears fruit, a garden that blooms. But for that to happen, you need to plant it. You need to water it. You need to trust in time and the process, even when you don't see anything happening on the surface. This is the foundation of everything I've built. Every choice, every movement came from a space of faith in the invisible and in my own ability to grow. And I know you have this seed inside of you too. Everyone does. But what separates those who bloom from those who remain stagnant is the willingness to take action. I want you to stop and ask yourself right now, what's holding you back? Fear of failure? Doubt about your own worth? Or is it just the comfort of the known, even when the known no longer satisfies you? Whatever it is, I want you to know that trusting yourself isn't easy, but it's necessary. Because the greatest regret you can have isn't failing, it's never having tried. Are you willing to bet on yourself? To plant that seed, even without immediate guarantees? Because the truth is, success is built on calculated risks and intentional actions. So, as you think about this, remember, the path to living an intentional life doesn't start with big leaps, but with small steps full of purpose. And the first step is to decide. Decide that you're ready to put fear aside and follow the flow of that inner voice that has always known the way. This is your chance to stop waiting for others' approval and start creating the future you deserve. What will you choose today? Imagine for a moment that you're standing in front of a closed door. Behind it could be the opportunity that changes everything in your life. But opening that door means taking a risk. What if it doesn't work? What if it goes wrong? That's the weight of owning your own path, betting on yourself and taking full control of what's ahead. It's scary, but here's the truth. There's no growth without risk, and no victory without courage. When I decided to bet on myself, it was like jumping off a cliff not knowing if the parachute would open. But deep down, that inner voice, that intuition we all have, told me, go, trust, take the risk. And I went. Because in the end, the biggest risk of all is standing still and letting life pass by without ever trying. Every decision I made came from that place. From that space of listening to my truth, of taking a step into the unknown with faith and determination. And that's what I want you to see today. Your life is not defined by what happens to you, but by what you choose to do with what happens. I chose to act. I bet everything on my own potential and committed to living intentionally. I especially remember 1989. I had been with my program for 3 years, but something inside me kept feeling restless. That's when I found a book that changed my perspective, The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukov. It described how every action in life follows an intention. This deeply moved me. It was as if I finally understood that it wasn't just about working hard or having luck, but about planting intentional seeds and trusting the process of growth. Now imagine this. You're holding a seed, small, seemingly insignificant, but inside it lies the potential to become something enormous, a tree that bears fruit, a garden that blooms. But for that to happen, you need to plant it. You need to water it. You need to trust the timing and the process, even when you see nothing happening on the surface. This is the foundation of everything I've built. Every choice, every move, came from a space of faith in the invisible and in my own ability to grow. And I know that you have that seed inside of you too. Everyone does. But what separates those who bloom from those who stay stagnant is the willingness to act. I want you to stop and ask yourself right now, what is holding you back? Fear of failure? Doubt about your own worth? Or is it simply the comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar no longer satisfies you? Whatever it is, I want you to know that trusting yourself isn't easy, but it's necessary. Because the greatest regret you can have isn't failing, it's never having tried. Are you willing to bet on yourself? To plant that seed, even without immediate guarantees? Because the truth is, success is built on calculated risks and intentional actions. So as you think about this, remember, the path to living an intentional life doesn't begin with giant leaps, but with small, purposeful steps. And the first step is to decide. Decide that you're ready to put fear aside and follow the flow of that inner voice that has always known the way. This is your chance to stop waiting for others' approval and start creating the future you deserve. What will you choose today? Imagine this for a moment. Before every action you've ever taken, before every thought that crossed your mind, there was something invisible yet incredibly powerful, an intention. And this intention, whether you realize it or not, shapes the results you experience in life. It's as if every decision you make is a stone thrown into a calm lake. The ripples that spread out are the consequences, but the force behind the impact is the intention. This idea struck me deeply when I first encountered it in the book The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukav. He wrote about how every action is preceded by an intention, and that completely changed the way I began to view my choices. At that time, I was at a critical point in my life. I had already started making money, something I had never experienced before, and suddenly, I felt the pressure to try to please everyone around me. I wanted to be seen as generous, reliable, and willing to help. But what I didn't realize was that I was distancing myself from my own truth. I was putting the needs and expectations of others above my own, without even stopping to ask, what is my intention behind this? Was I acting out of fear of disappointing people, out of insecurity, or because I truly felt that it was part of my purpose? And it was at that moment that the realization hit me. I understood that if I kept ignoring the importance of my intentions, I would end up living a life based on obligations, not purpose. So I took a pause. I took a deep breath and started paying attention. I began asking myself before every decision, what is my intention here? What do I truly want to create with this choice? And this practice led me to make some of the most important and transformative decisions of my life. Maybe you're wondering now, what if I don't have clarity about my intentions? What if I'm just reacting to what's happening around me? The answer is simple. Everything starts with awareness. When you take a moment and ask yourself why you're about to do something, you give yourself the power to redirect the course of your actions. Instead of acting on impulse or external pressure, you begin to act with purpose. And that changes everything. I remember being in that transitional period, feeling like I needed to prove my worth to others. But as I reflected on my intentions, I realized that true value came from being true to myself, from being guided by what resonated with my inner truth. This shift in perspective not only gave me more confidence, but also opened doors and opportunities that I could have never predicted. Now think about your own life. What are the intentions behind the choices you've been making? Are you acting with clarity and purpose, or just reacting to the circumstances? Because the truth is that every action you take, even the smallest one, is creating an effect in the world around you. And the more aware you are of these intentions, the more powerful the impact you'll have. If you feel that it's time to live with more purpose and intention, I want to invite you to take that first step. Subscribe to the channel to continue this conversation about personal growth, self-confidence, and transformation. And more than that, leave the comment "I'm ready" to mark this moment as the beginning of a new journey in your life. Because in the end, It's the intention you set today that will determine the results you see tomorrow. Shall we walk this path together? So I want to ask you, what is the intention behind your choices today? What is guiding your steps? Are you acting out of fear, insecurity, or the need for approval? Or are you making decisions with clarity, purpose, and confidence in what you're here to do? Because the answer to these questions may be what's holding you back, or what will set you free. The truth is, everything begins with intention. And when you learn to set that intention consciously, you gain the power to shape your future. Now, I want to challenge you. Before your next decision, pause for a moment. Ask yourself why, and see how that simple pause can change everything. Imagine for a moment that, overnight, you become the focal point of attention. You're recognized, celebrated, and suddenly, the people around you begin to see you in a new light. That's exactly what happened to me when I got published. And along with the recognition came a flood of distant cousins, schoolmates, and friends who, all of a sudden, seemed to need me to solve problems or do favors. I didn't know how to say no. And this difficulty in setting boundaries almost made me lose control over my own choices and priorities. But it was at that moment that I discovered something that completely changed the course of my life: the power of intention. This principle made me realize that before every decision, even before any thought or action, there is an intention. And it is this intention that shapes the results and determines the impact of our choices. This made me reflect deeply on how I was living. I realized that I could no longer make decisions just to please others or out of fear of disappointing someone. I needed to stop, breathe, and ask myself, what is the true intention behind this choice? What do I really want to create or transform with this action? It was when I decided to start living intentionally, and to be honest, this simple mental shift was like flipping a switch inside of me. Every decision began to be guided by my purpose, by the impact I wanted to have on my life and the lives of those around me. And it didn't take long for me to realize that living with intention not only brings clarity but also power. The power to say no when something isn't aligned with my values. The power to choose projects that truly resonated with who I was. The power to set healthy boundaries without feeling guilty. So, if you've ever felt overwhelmed by external expectations, if you've ever found yourself doing things just to please others or avoid conflict, know that you're not alone. I've been through that too. But here's the key point. You have the power to change that narrative. It all starts by paying attention to your intention. Ask yourself, why am I making this decision? What do I really hope to achieve? This simple habit can completely transform the way you live, how you relate to others, and how you make decisions. And now I want you to take a moment and think, what would your life be like if you started living with more intention? What would it be like if every choice you made was aligned with your deepest values and boldest dreams? Because that's exactly what happens when you take control and act with purpose. Leave a comment sharing what you think about living intentionally. Share your experiences or questions, because together we can grow and learn even more. And if you're ready for this transformation, to live with more clarity and purpose, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we'll explore how to build an intentional life that truly reflects who you are and the impact you want to make in the world. Let's start this journey today. Imagine for a moment the impact you can create when every step you take is guided by a clear and defined intention. When every choice moves from being just an impulsive reaction to a strategic move towards your purpose. This is exactly what changed my trajectory. I realized that it wasn't enough to just appear on TV, produce a show, and hope it worked. I knew I had to go beyond that. So I set a fundamental rule for my team. No idea, no concept, no episode would be approved without a specific and powerful intention behind it. Because intention creates direction. It's like the lighthouse that lights the path and keeps you from getting lost in the noise. I wanted more than just to entertain. I wanted to inspire, provoke reflection, and offer something that could leave people better than when they started watching. And this shift in mindset, from just being on air to truly serving the audience, transformed everything. When you act with intention, you create impact. And that was the difference. The show didn't become #1 by chance. It wasn't luck. It was because every day we committed to being helpful. We put purpose into every topic, every conversation, every theme we covered. The intention was to help people see themselves differently, to discover new possibilities for their lives, to make them feel they weren't alone on their journeys. Now think about this for a moment. What would it be like if you applied this same approach to your life? What would it be like to wake up every morning and before anything else, define your intention for the day? What message do you want to send? What impact do you want to leave? Because the truth is, without intention, you're just reacting to circumstances. But with intention, you start shaping the circumstances. You become the creator of your own story, instead of just being carried along by the plot of others. This isn't just motivation, it's strategy. It's an action plan.
So, what I want you to take away from this is this powerful idea. Intention is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Intention is what transforms common actions into extraordinary results. And if I've learned anything in the 25 years I've been leading that show, it's that when you act with purpose, the universe responds. It opens doors. It creates connections. It brings opportunities that once seemed impossible. But it all starts with the decision to be intentional, to not just exist but to live with meaning. Now, think about your life today. Which areas need more intention? Where have you been merely reacting instead of acting with clarity and purpose? And more importantly, what can you do right now to change that? Because I can guarantee you this. When you start operating from that place of conscious intention, you don't just change the results you see, you change the way you feel. And in the end, that's what turns your life into something truly meaningful. Imagine for a moment the weight of sitting across from someone and knowing that this conversation is not just another interview. It's an opportunity to change perspectives, open hearts, and perhaps even transform lives. This was something I understood early in my work. Every word spoken, every question asked, needed to have a greater purpose. So I made it clear to my team, don't bring me empty ideas. Don't bring me stories that don't have a thread of truth that I can connect with. Because if I can't find that truth, if I can't see the intention behind that conversation, then it's not worth airing. This principle changed everything. It wasn't just about creating entertainment, it was about creating impact. It was about using every minute of that platform to serve in a meaningful way. I remember it like it was yesterday, the first time I applied this principle in practice. It was one of those moments where you feel the weight of responsibility, yet at the same time, you know you have to move forward. I was about to interview a mother who had lost her 16-year-old daughter, a bright, lively girl who was brutally murdered by her boyfriend, a seemingly perfect boy with excellent grades and popular at school. This story had all the characteristics of a shocking drama, something that would capture any audience's attention. But I knew I couldn't stop there. I knew that this interview had to go beyond the tragedy and touch something deeper. It needed to answer bigger questions, provoke reflection, and perhaps even save other lives. As I prepared for that conversation, I focused on a single intention. How can I use this moment to bring healing and raise awareness? It wasn't just about exploring that mother's pain or seeking answers about what led that boy to commit such a terrible act. It was about giving voice to that pain in a way that made sense, that helped other families see the signs, to have the difficult and necessary conversations with their children. This intention guided every word that came out of my mouth. And in the end, it wasn't just an emotional interview, it was a turning point. We received letters and messages for months afterward, from parents saying that conversation opened their eyes to situations they had been ignoring in their own homes. The impact of that interview stayed with me, and that's when I truly understood the power of leading with intention. Because when you put intention into what you do, everything changes. You stop acting on autopilot and start operating from a place of purpose. Every question stops being just a curiosity and becomes a tool to open doors, create possibilities, and even heal wounds. And that's what made my show not just a ratings success, but a platform that people trusted, respected, and returned to time and time again to hear more. Now take a moment and think about how you've been handling your own conversations and decisions. Are you operating on autopilot, or are you leading with intention? Are you just reacting to what's happening, or are you creating spaces to transform situations? Because the truth is, every interaction, every moment you choose to speak, is an opportunity to make an impact. Whether in a work meeting, a difficult conversation with a friend, or even a family dinner, you can choose to communicate with purpose. You can decide to enter that conversation with the intention to build, to unite, to clarify, or even to heal. This intentional approach isn't just for interviews or television programs. It's a tool you can use in all areas of your life. And if you start applying this principle now, imagine the kind of impact you can have on the people around you. Imagine how your words can open doors, change directions, and even inspire actions. Because in the end, it's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it, and most importantly, why you are saying it. So, the next time you find yourself in an important conversation, ask yourself, what is my intention here? Because it's this intention that will define the outcome you create. Imagine a young woman who had everything to be happy. She was a cheerleader, loved by everyone, full of dreams and hope. But behind this perfect image, there was a painful secret that no one suspected. The boyfriend, who everyone saw as the ideal guy, was abusing her. And you know what's even more frightening? This isn't an isolated case. In the 90s, I learned something shocking that is still a harsh reality today. The rate of domestic violence among teenagers is as high as it is among adult women. 1 in 4 girls between the ages of 14 and 18 who are dating are being abused by their partner. Now, take a second to think about that. 1 in 4. This means that this situation could be happening to someone close to you, and you might have no idea, because girls hide it. They hide it out of shame, fear, or simply because they still want to maintain the relationship. That's exactly what happened to this girl. She kept everything silent. She didn't tell her mother or her friends, and the result of that decision was tragic. Her story came to me when her mother came on the show. Before she went on stage, I went to the dressing room and asked, "Why are you here? What's your intention in sharing this story?" At first, the answer was vague. She said the producers had invited her. But I pressed further. I asked again, "What is the real reason you said yes? What do you hope to achieve with this?" That's when she opened her heart. She said, "I want people to know that my daughter's life was bigger than her death. Everywhere I go, all they talk about is how she died. But I want them to know that she was loved. She loved us, had friends, had dreams. I want them to remember that her life was so much more than that tragic end." And in that moment, I promised her I would do exactly that. I told her that the intention behind every question I asked on the show would be to show that that girl's life had meaning. That her time here, even though it was short, was not in vain. And more than that, I wanted everyone who heard this story to see themselves in it. I wanted other girls to recognize the signs, to see themselves in that girl, and understand that staying silent can be fatal. Because silence doesn't protect. Silence destroys. This experience completely changed the way I approach the stories that come to me. I realized that by setting a clear intention, I wasn't just telling stories. I was saving lives. Every word spoken there, every question asked, had a purpose. And that purpose was to serve the memory of that girl, to serve the girls who were still alive and needed the courage to speak, to serve the mothers who needed to know what was happening under their own roofs. So I want you to take this message with you. Think about the people around you. Think about the impact silence can have and the difference the truth can make. And most importantly, ask yourself, what is your intention? Because intention is the foundation of everything. It's what turns words into actions, stories into change, and pain into power. And today, more than ever, we need to use that intention to protect, inspire, and transform lives. Imagine for a moment being at a crucial point in your life, where every decision seems to carry the weight of defining your future. Now think about the difference between acting impulsively and acting with intention. That was the turning point for me. It was in that moment, on that show that earned me an Emmy, that everything became clear. Aligning my intentions wasn't just a strategic choice, it was a wake-up call. And since that moment, something changed deeply within me. I realized I couldn't move forward without first connecting with the truth that existed inside me. And you know what? That truth is inside you too. Have you ever felt that sensation of being exactly where you should be? That peace that comes when you know you're on the right path? That's what I started seeking before making any decision.
And the most impressive thing was realizing that this connection didn't come from the noise or external hustle, but from silence. Yes, silence. When I stopped to listen to myself, to disconnect from all the external expectations and opinions, I was able to clearly see why I was doing what I was doing. It was no longer about meeting expectations or seeking validation. It was about purpose. And in that moment, I understood that every action needed to have a real intention, aligned with what I wanted to create in the world. And I ask you, when was the last time you stopped to reflect on the true intention behind your choices? Because that's where everything changes. It's in that space of reflection that you find answers that have been hidden all along. It was also at this point that I started to see the world in a different way. Quantum physics, Newton's law, and even the order of nature began to make more sense than ever before. I realized that we are not separate from these laws, we are connected to them. Newton's third law of motion, the one that says every action has an equal and opposite reaction, became much more than a scientific formula to me. It became a powerful metaphor for life. Everything we do, everything we put into the world comes back to us in some way. It's as if the universe is always responding to the energy we emit.
And this made me think, if every action generates a reaction, then every intentional choice has the power to shape our destiny. That's how I started to live, with purpose and intention. And I can tell you that this approach not only transformed my life, but also brought me a level of clarity and direction I had never experienced before. Imagine living like this. Imagine making decisions knowing exactly why you're doing what you're doing, knowing that your energy is aligned with the result you want to create. This is the true key to unlocking your potential. So, I want you to stop for a moment and think about this. What is the intention behind your choices today? What are you putting into the world? Because, believe me, the universe is listening, and it is responding. And if you're ready to start aligning your intentions with what truly matters to you, now is the time to take the next step. Don't underestimate the power of a clear and aligned intention. It could be the difference between living on autopilot and creating a life that truly inspires you. Now I ask you, what is the intention that will guide your next decision? And you know what's even more powerful? When you truly understand this, you start to look at life in a completely new way. You realize that nothing is by chance, that every action you take sends ripples into the world around you, and that these ripples inevitably return. Everything you send out, whether it's love, gratitude, anger, or fear, comes back to you. And that changes the way you live. It makes you stop and think twice before reacting in the heat of the moment or acting without intention. Because now you know you're planting seeds with every word, every gesture, and every decision. When I understood this, I started paying more attention to what I was putting into the world. I realized that, just as Miss Saley said in the movie, no one escapes this exchange. What we do to others, the good or the bad, finds its way back to us. And this realization changed the way I approach not only my relationships, but also my career, my choices, and even the difficult moments. It was a turning point because it gave me a new perspective on the power I had to shape my own reality. And here's the hook. If you stop to think about it, this idea is present in all cultures, all religions and philosophies. It's what many call karma, others call the law of attraction. But in the end, it's all about intention and consequence. When you understand this, you begin to act with more purpose. You stop just reacting to life and start creating the life you want. Every action becomes a statement of who you are and what you wish to attract. So I ask you, what are you sending into the world today? What seeds are you planting? Because believe me, what you cultivate now will be exactly what you reap later. This is the true essence of the law of return, cause and effect, and the physics applied to our existence. And if, like me, you've ever felt that something greater is guiding your actions, this might be the confirmation you needed to start living more intentionally. Now, I want you to take a moment and think about how this idea applies to your own life. What were the moments when your actions brought unexpected reactions? How did that change the course of your journey? Share your experience in the comments, because I believe that by sharing our stories, we create a powerful chain of inspiration. And if you're ready to take the next step in your growth journey, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here, we're creating a space to explore transformative ideas, awaken powerful intentions, and build a future together that's more aligned with who we truly are. Let's continue this conversation. Because life is always responding, the question is, what are you asking of it? And if we think about it, this completely changes the way we approach our choices and actions. It's no longer about acting while waiting for a future return. It's about recognizing that every decision we make, every word we speak, every action we take already creates an immediate impact, not only in the world around us, but also within ourselves. And this is how we transform pain into purpose. Before any transformation can happen, before any healing can begin, we must face head-on what has happened to us. We need to recognize, accept, and understand. That's exactly what allowed me to take the next step. Because before I could transform my pain into purpose, I had to stop and truly look at it. And that can be scary because sometimes all we want to do is run away or ignore it. But the truth is, there is no growth without confrontation. In the book, What Happened to You, we discuss exactly this. How our experiences shape who we are and how we can use what has happened to us to create something meaningful. What helped me take that leap was realizing that pain doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the turning point. It was there that I understood that my story, no matter how difficult, didn't have to define me as a victim. On the contrary, it could propel me towards something greater. The power to transform pain into purpose comes from a deep place within us. It comes from the recognition that everything we go through carries lessons that can strengthen us and guide us to the next chapter. And when you see this, you begin to realize that your pain isn't just yours. It's part of something much bigger. It has the potential to inspire, to transform other lives, to create connections. Because the truth is, everyone carries some pain. Everyone has a story that shaped who they are. And when you choose to share that story, when you decide to use your scars as a source of strength, you become a beacon for others who are still trying to find their way. So, what happened to you? What shaped who you are today? And more importantly, how can you use that to impact the world? That's the true purpose. It's not about avoiding pain or pretending it didn't exist. It's about accepting, learning, and transforming. Because everything we put into the world is already coming back to us. And the only question we need to answer is, what are we putting out there? Have you ever felt like life sometimes places too much weight on your shoulders? Like it's one lesson after another, as if the universe is testing your limits? If so, know that you are not alone. And what I want you to understand is that every challenge, every obstacle you faced was not in vain. It was building something in you. It was shaping the incredibly strong person you are today. Because the truth is this: there is not a single Black woman in this room, in this world, who hasn't been strengthened by the hardships she has faced. And I bet that if you look back, you'll see moments when you thought you couldn't go on, but you did anyway. And I know how it feels. There are days when you feel like you simply can't take another lesson, don't need another battle because life has already dealt enough blows. You look up at the sky and say, God, today I don't want to learn anything else. I've learned enough. But here's the most important point. Each of these experiences wasn't just testing you, they were training you. Every time you got up after falling, you gained more strength. And over time, that strength turned into power. A power that no one can take from you.
And that's why you're here today. Because you went through the fire and came out stronger. You went through the pain and turned it into power. And maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but every challenge shaped you in a way that prepared you for this exact moment. So, take a moment to think about this. How much you've grown, how much you've endured, and how much you've built along the way. And now, I want you to look inside yourself and realize that all of this has been a process of building. You weren't just surviving, you were preparing. And now, you're ready to use this accumulated strength, this resilience, to do something even greater. Because every experience not only shaped you, but also left clues about your true calling, about the impact you're destined to make. And maybe you're wondering, but what now? What do I do with all of this? The answer is simple. You use it as your fuel. You turn all that pain, all those tears into purpose. You share your story, you inspire others, you keep building, because the power you've accumulated wasn't meant to be kept. It was meant to be used. It was meant to open doors, not just for you, but for everyone around you. I learned to take what happened to me and turn it into something powerful. It was the empathy I developed, first for myself and then for others, that allowed me to become the woman I am today. And this is what I want you to understand now. Everything that happened to you can become the strength you need to move forward. But this only happens when you decide to leave the stigma and shame behind. When you choose to stop hiding your secrets and start accepting that your vulnerability is not a weakness, but rather your greatest power. It is there in that space where you open up and face your pain that you discover who you truly are. And you know, I will never forget what Maya Angelou used to say. She said, "I wouldn't change anything about my journey now. Nothing. Not even the most painful moments, not even the sexual abuse, the assault, the traumas that tried to define me. Because in the end, it was all of that that shaped me. I remember when I was assaulted. I didn't even know what a penis was. I was so young, so innocent, and like so many other girls, I didn't tell anyone. And how many women are listening to this now and thinking this is also my story? But what I want you to understand is that your story doesn't have to be a burden. It can be your fuel. It can be the foundation for the woman you're becoming. When you look at everything you've been through and decide that it won't define you, but instead propel you forward, that's when you take back control. That's when you take that pain and turn it into something meaningful. Something that matters to you, to the world, and to the people who will be inspired by your courage. Let's be honest for a moment. Have you ever stopped to think about why certain negative people seem to gravitate around you? Have you wondered why, even when trying to stay positive, this heavy energy keeps showing up? Here's something powerful to reflect on. It's not just about them, it's about what you're emitting, what you're allowing, and what you're willing to tolerate. This might feel uncomfortable, but it's a liberating truth. Because in the end, the energy you attract is a reflection of the space you create. So, instead of pointing fingers at others, look inward and ask yourself, what part of me is inviting this energy in? And more importantly, what am I doing to change that? Now maybe you're thinking, but these people are my friends, my family, I can't just push them away. And you're right, it's not about cutting ties thoughtlessly. It's about redefining boundaries. It's about choosing who deserves space in your inner circle and who you're willing to keep at a distance. Because here's the crucial point. Your energy is precious. What you allow around you shapes how you feel, how you act, and ultimately who you become. So the real question isn't about them, it's about you. Who do you want to be in this world? Imagine for a moment your funeral. People are gathered and begin sharing stories about you. What do you hope they will say? Do you want them to talk about the success you had, the awards you won, the shows you produced? Or do you want them to remember the impact your love had, the generosity, the grace, the way you made people feel seen, valued, and loved? Because in the end, that's what really matters.
The legacy you leave is not measured by what you accumulated, but by what you gave. And giving starts with who you choose to be every day. So here's the real challenge: to live with intention. To decide that you will be a positive force, no matter the chaos around you. That you will be the person who brings calm, not drama. That you will be an example of love, even when it's easier to react with anger. Because when you do that, something magical happens. The energy around you begins to change. The negative people, they either transform or distance themselves. The right opportunities, they start to appear. And what seemed impossible, suddenly it becomes achievable. Because you chose to align with who you truly are. And that truth always attracts what is right. And here's something to keep in mind. No one is perfect. We all have moments when we let negativity in, when we tolerate less than we deserve. But the difference between those who stay stuck and those who grow is in the willingness to recognize this and make changes. It's not about blaming yourself for what happened in the past. It's about using every experience as a lesson to create a better future. It's about asking yourself, what did I learn, and how can I use this to become stronger? Because at the end of the day, what really matters is how you choose to respond. Will you continue allowing negativity to define you, or will you decide to be the force that changes everything? The choice is yours. And when you commit to that change, when you choose to be a source of light, something powerful happens. You don't just change your own life, but you also inspire everyone around you to do the same. And that's how real impact begins. One step at a time, one choice at a time, one intention at a time. That's how you become the person you always knew you could be. Sometimes, the greatest act of self-love is knowing when to step away, even when it involves people who play an important role in your life, and that decision can be difficult. It could be a longtime friend, a close relative, someone with whom you've shared significant moments. But when respect and consideration no longer exist, you need to set boundaries. And that doesn't mean cutting ties forever, but rather creating space so you can protect your peace and perhaps one day reconnect in a healthier way. I know this because I've lived through it. I've had to tell members of my own family, I will not allow you to treat me this way, and sometimes it takes time. In my case, it took 3 years for one of these people to finally understand, and I was clear. When you come to your senses, call me. I'll be here. That's the truth. Sometimes you need to give the other person space to grow, but you also need to give yourself space to breathe.
And here's the key to unlocking all of this: living in the space of gratitude. That's my number one. Gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a powerful practice that transforms the way you see the world. When you live in gratitude, you train your mind to focus on what's good, on what's already working, and that, in itself, creates more of what you want to experience. Gratitude shifts your frequency, changes your energy, and attracts more reasons to be grateful. It's like a virtuous cycle that starts with a simple choice, recognizing what you already have and deeply valuing it. And I know this may seem basic, but the truth is that most people don't practice gratitude consistently. They wait for big achievements to be grateful for, but true gratitude is about celebrating the small moments. The hot coffee in the morning, the smile of someone you love, the opportunity to try again today. Because when you learn to be thankful for what you have, you open yourself up to receiving much more. So the question is, are you willing to build this muscle? Are you willing to start now, even if it's just being grateful for being here in this moment? Because this is how transformation begins. Practicing gratitude is not something superficial, and here's the key point you need to understand. Gratitude is not about waiting for things to improve before you start being thankful. Gratitude is about recognizing what is already good right now, in this very moment. And I know what many might think, oh, but it's easy for you because you already have everything. Let me be clear. I have everything because I learned to practice gratitude before I even had it. And this is not theory, it's practice. I see it work, and I know it works. Recently, I came across an incredible quote that said something like, "Don't waste your time wishing for what others have. Remember that the things you have today are things you once only wished for." This hit me because it's true. How many times do we forget to acknowledge what we've already achieved? How many times do we only look at what's still missing? Practicing gratitude is not just about being thankful for big things. It's about recognizing the small victories and honoring the details. I remember a conversation I had with Sheryl Sandberg about her book, Option B. She shared how she was able to overcome the devastating loss of her husband by practicing gratitude. At first, she found it difficult too, but she started writing down 3 things she was grateful for every day. When she told me this, I said, "I've been doing that for years." Because waking up in the morning knowing you're going to look for something to be thankful for changes your perspective for the entire day. And I know it doesn't have to be something grand. Sometimes it's just being thankful for having a roof over your head, for someone holding the door open for you, or on more challenging days, simply for still being alive. But here's the secret. Practicing gratitude is not just an act of recognition, it's a spiritual exercise. I have piles and piles of journals filled with daily lists of 5 things I'm grateful for. This has become a non-negotiable practice for me, because I know it changes not just my emotional state, but my vibration. Researchers have shown that if you can focus on gratitude for just 17 seconds a day, you literally change your energy. 17 seconds. Do you have 17 seconds to change your day? Because if you can't spare 17 seconds for this, maybe you need to reconsider how committed you are to creating a good life. Let's do a quick test together now. Close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath. Exhale and mentally say, "Thank you." Take another deep breath. Now think of something, anything that you're grateful for at this very moment. Hold that image in your mind as you inhale and exhale again. Now open your eyes. Do you feel the difference? Do you feel the weight lifted? Because that's the magic of practicing gratitude. And here's my challenge for you. Start today. Grab a notebook or an app on your phone and write down 5 things you're grateful for every single day. It can be anything, a friend, a smile, a warm cup of coffee in the morning, or even a moment when you had the courage to stand up and keep going. And if there's ever a day when you feel like there's nothing to be thankful for, just remember that being alive is reason enough. You deserve peace, you deserve joy, and you deserve to live with intention. And gratitude is the key to unlocking all of that. Let's walk this journey together. Share your reflections in the comments and tell me, what are you most grateful for today?